Good evening. Good evening, everybody. It's Divided We Stand because, of course, it's Saturday night, around 9 o'clock, something like that. And it's good to see everybody. As you know, David and I are going to kind of shorten these shows a bit. We had planned on uploading a video this past week. Dave was doing a lot of traveling, and I was doing a lot of work with school as far as finals, but we will be uploading some other things next week or the week after, but it'll be happening. But we, of course, have our show tonight, which is, of course, Divided We Stand. If you're new to the channel, we ask that you subscribe. This is Divided We Stand on YouTube. We also have a Facebook page called the Divided We Stand Facebook group page. We have 1,300 members there. So we ask that you become a part and commiserate with us and share information as you can and beef what you have to. We're one small family of people who have generally like minds in the idea that the Republican Party is intransigent, and as long as they are going to be this way, they're not only intransigent, they're basically a fascist organization at this point. There's no need to try to negotiate. Well, without any further ado, as I usually say, I've got to kind of stop doing that. I'd like to introduce my compadre, David Price from Arlington, Virginia. Dave, how are we doing?
Pretty good. It's summertime. I got a chance to do a little traveling this past week, so that was nice. And now we're back to do our show. And we never know where this is going to go. It's just
right.
I remember when you posted one of our offline online things, right? Do it offline and then put it online, where somebody said, the two of us are too old to be meaningful. Well, maybe we suffer from the same thing as Joe Biden. I don't know. They say Joe Biden's too old to be meaningful, and I disagree with that. So I kind of disagree with that comment. Again, it's for everybody who's watching or listening live, welcome. For everyone who later tunes in, thank you for doing that. It does have, I don't know how much people know about, these kinds of things, but of course there's really two lives to this. There's a live, right? Which is tonight. And then it's archived on the Divided We Stand YouTube channel, and people can access it at any time. And it's sometimes interesting to follow the numbers to see how, if we could come up with a magic formula, right, we could own the internet. But I don't think anyone has the magic formula for what goes viral. Certainly having a big name probably helps. Elon Musk, for example, who I have no respect for whatsoever, has like umpteen million followers, right? Because he's Elon Musk. But much of what comes out of his mouth is very dangerous. I might even talk a little bit about it tonight because he now has a platform that he owns, right? So what's up, Bri?
Yes, Dave, on my end, I've been doing some thinking in terms of brainstorming. Normally, I take the news events and do what I usually do, just try to kind of keep up with what's going on and kind of bounce off that. But I thought this week, Dave, I was going to do this thing where I didn't have to be correct. I didn't really have to be that original, but I decided to go into a different direction and brainstorm where this whole thing is going. And I came up with, one idea. And I'd like to use that more or less as a theme to start the show tonight, Dave. And that's this. I've been following the indictments here. We've been talking about Aileen Cannon or worries about her and what effect she will have on Trump's trial. We see that the entire Republican Party, save for a few congressmen, are all behind Trump. We've talked about the fact that many of these candidates, first of all, are afraid of their constituents. They need their constituents to win in the primaries. So there are lots of reasons why they'll support what Trump is doing. But I tried to take more of a sinister look, and almost to the point where, it would be the conspiracy type thinking. And I don't really like that. but I think it's worth looking into in this sense, and it's this. I was trying to be optimistic, Dave, and think, well, let's just suppose that Trump is indicted. I mean, excuse me, not indicted. Let's suppose he's indicted and convicted. So he's going to go to prison, much like this Teixeira looks like he's going to be going to prison. And once that verdict occurs, whether it does or not, we don't know. But I'm just saying, we're going to brainstorm. We're going to basically do a thought experiment. If he is convicted, he still holds some leverage, a lot of leverage, because it's the idea that he knows a lot about all the people who were, behind him. Not just like the Mark Meadows and the Rudy Giulianis, but it seems to me that he seems to know how to play so dirty that he knows all the dirt on all of the figures. So, looking at that, he could certainly play that game. He obviously doesn't want to have to go to prison. Could he use that idea of doing in all the others and saying, I'm going to get all of you. I'm going to do all of you. And they know he might go that place just so he could save himself. And then the other question, I guess, that is kind of a sister question was, would Jack Smith be thinking that too? Like, at the end game, if I do get to this point, I'm sure that would be jumping way ahead, but that's leverage too, that he could get a lot of the small fishes, which might carry a lot more weight, because Trump, even if he, did have a plea deal, he certainly wouldn't become president again. So I'm just trying to run this through you. Again, I have no reason to believe this is the truth. Although, again, there's some reason to believe that he certainly would do people in. Is there any traction to that idea?
Well, of course, there's some, and that would be what we know of Donald Trump. Donald Trump cares about one person, Donald Trump. I used to say at one point, and I said maybe his daughter, but if you notice, his daughter has kind of disappeared from the scene.
Right.
Reports are, and I mean, I don't know this to be true, so I'm going to report it and not report it, but just say it indicates that she's somewhat upset with her father, or more with the persona her father has come up with, because obviously I think she had plans on being, I don't know about politics, but certainly a leader, and now the Trump name is somewhat soiled. For example, Trump International here in Washington, D.C., prominent place. Actually, maybe technically 2.5, 3 blocks from the White House, is no longer Trump's name, because Trump no longer has anything to do with it. It's now the Waldorf Astoria. And so the Trump name, at least commercially, I don't think is what it was. And Donald Trump has translated, though, with tremendous capital in the political world. Let's start with this. We say it every show, but I think it bears repeating. If Donald Trump, first we had to say if he's indicted, and we no longer have to say that. 37
Right.
counts, right? 37 counts, and still 2 more serious charges out there that could cause him even more legal problems than this one. And of course, he still has the payment to Stormy Daniels to deal with. Hey, Veg. And Joey. So what happens is, so let's look at this. What is going on? Why aren't the Republican candidates? And pretty soon, Brian, if you look at it, they might hit what they did before or exceed that. So my first speculation is, why is everyone running for the presidency? Well, I think Ron DeSantis felt, based on polls, early polling, and name recognition with what he's pulled off in Florida, obviously he thinks he has a chance to be president. After that, I don't know. So first of all, why are they running? I think there's got to be a reason why they're running, and they know it. We
Right.
don't. All right. Now, pretty much all but Chris Christie, whom has as much chance of being president as I do, have come out in some way, either in strong support or in mild support of Donald Trump, despite his legal woes, right?
Right.
So I think probably, if I had to speculate, a couple of them, especially maybe Senator Scott, maybe Nikki Haley, some of them I think are running to position themselves as vice president or a vice president. We know that even if hell froze over, Donald Trump would not come back with Pence as his vice president. It would not happen. But Pence, of course, believes that he is, I assume he believes this. We know that Ted Cruz does, that he's chosen by God, to be president, or certainly a power player in Washington, if not president. But he has no chance for vice president. So does Donald Trump know where the bodies are buried? For all of them, for Mitch McConnell, for Ted Cruz, for Marjorie Taylor Greene, pick your Republicans. I'm sure he's interested in gossip, right? I mean, that would just stand to reason, knowing how he speaks and carries himself. Would there be anything there to trade off? I don't know, Brian, because usually with legal trade-offs, it's up the ladder, right? Or small fish, bigger fish.
Right. Usually it's up the ladder, right?
And Donald Trump is the biggest fish. Okay. So I don't know what he could offer to get out of whatever he's going to get out of. Now we get back to his popularity. I've said before, and I believe this to be true, unfortunately with Americans, and I can't speak to other countries because they don't live there, name recognition is pretty much the end-all and be-all of a start. Once in a while, you'll find a candidate, right? A Bill Clinton who emerges as a governor from Arkansas. Barack Obama was not that well known, but certainly George W. Bush, yes, he was relatively, of course, with his father and the name recognition. So I hope you're right, Mr. Silly. I have my doubts simply because it hasn't happened before, but it certainly appears. I don't think that someone in the Justice Department, in this case Jack Smith, being overseen by Merrick Garland and whoever else is above him, would risk playing a hand that he isn't convinced will lead Donald Trump to jail. So first of all, but remember, we've said, and this I think comes into some of it, Brian, why there's so much support for him from his, the people who are opposing him politically for the presidential or in the presidential race. There's only three things that you need to be president: 35 years old, United States citizen, and have lived in the country for 15 years. Now, notice it doesn't say cannot run, if not indicted, cannot run. We've laid that out. There have been candidates, certainly the most famous, Eugene V. Debs, running for prison. That could be, Gary. You could be right about that.
Very nice play on words there, Gary.
Yeah, that's one of Washington D.C.'s certainly most speculated on is the sexuality of Lindsey Graham. So that gets to Gary's point.
The only thing I could really tell you, Dave, about that, when you're saying you usually go up, you're right. But I'm saying it would just seem unlikely that they do want to put him in the slammer. They'd like to just, at the very least, make sure he admits what he did and promise not to run again. But if they get that out of him and then get to take some of the other ones out, because I don't know. I mean, I want to see him go to prison. There's no doubt about that. And he should go to prison for what he did. And I hope that he does. I mean, that would be the best thing. I don't know that that's where Smith necessarily wants to go. There could be other things. We don't even know what else he has. We know the 37 counts. But How far does this thing, what kind of surprises will we see?
Well, there'll always be surprises, but I think in this case, they may be bad surprises of things that will happen. We'll talk about that in a moment in the I like that, Veg. I suppose that could be a possibility. We'll talk about Miss Cannon. That's part of the
Either that or
surprise.
she'll be the next Supreme Court nominee for him.
Well,
Well, she would if he would win the election in 24. I'm sure that he would nominate her.
yeah. So your question was, or the tangential question attacked on was, why are these Republicans,
Right.
politicians, still supporting Donald Trump?
And knowingly lying. I mean, we know that politicians lie, but all the time now. And
Okay, I think
it's unbelievable.
I think there's two main reasons, and there may be more. I think the first is, which you touched upon, Donald Trump has the support of the base. Okay, and I mean that in all terms, not just the base of the base. I mean the base, gross Republican insurrectionists. Now, I don't think there's so much fear of personal injury, although that would enter into it, right?
Right.
If you were counted, I think it's just, need their support. So I'm sure some of the presidential candidates are figuring, maybe rightfully, maybe wrongfully, that Donald Trump will be in prison, or at least on trial, by the time to run, and he won't be there, and they will not have alienated the base. Now, a couple of them have already come out and said, the minor candidates have already come out and said they will pardon Trump. That's a great thought, right? But of course, again, that's catering to that base. I still have a little hard time sometimes understanding why the base supports Donald Trump so much, but I really think it is that they view him as a successful businessman. They view him as someone who speaks his mind. They view him as someone who not only speaks his mind, but speaks their mind too. If we look back on this historically, I want to talk a little bit about, history, although it's a long way away from now. We're in the present, but history plays a role even in today, obviously. Past influence, present influence, future. The time of this base, what Donald Trump, I think, has done with the base, he's allowed that we kept hidden, right? With private conversations is now out in the open. I mean, what else can you say? I mean, Mexicans are rapists. I mean, how much further can you go, right? I mean, there's nowhere to go, and that's out there. The other reason, I didn't really think about it to you, Veg, I want to talk about that too. I think maybe, okay, I am going to speculate on this. You know who else I don't think they want to offend? I don't think they want to offend Fox News. I think because that also is the method which gets to the base. Yes, there's Newsmax. Yes, there's AON. Yes, Fox numbers have gone down a little bit.
But they're by far the number one network there.
There's no question, okay? No question. Number one. Now, something that I just picked up on the day that Donald Trump gets indicted, right? 37 counts. You know, the graphic, not the graphic, I'm sorry, the words that run under pictures,
Chiron.
Yeah, Chiron, right. This was a Chiron running that day on Fox. Wannabe dictator speaks at the White House after having his political rival arrested. Let's do that again. Wannabe dictator speaks at the White House after having his political rival arrested.
That guy was fired, by the way, recently. I mean, I think he was fired today or yesterday.
But
maybe probably because of legal issues. They probably didn't want to have to do it. They want to say, "Well, this is a rogue report."
But let's look at what's happened with the Republican Party and Republicans and conservatives and right wing extremists, and they're all one and the same pretty much anymore. Right. They're watching Fox News, and they see that. So, wannabe dictator. I think Joe Biden's a lot of things, but I don't think he's a wannabe dictator. I don't see it. Okay.
No, he's not a wannabe dictator.
If he is, he's doing a piss poor job of positioning himself to be dictator. Okay, which I don't see. speaks at the White House as if that's something that he shouldn't do. Isn't that what the president does? Doesn't he speak at the White House? I mean, unless he's traveling. But they set that up. Notice how they said wannabe dictator, because of what he's done, comes out to speak at the White House after having his political rival arrested. Huh? Huh? And that's back to this idea of what Trump has done. Trump is outstanding at playing the victim role, right? He's outstanding with that. Anybody with any sense can see through it, but he does it very well because that's part of his con. And part of that con is to the base. And he's basically, and I listened to him, I never listened to him, I was watching TV. And basically, these were all the times that he said, or not all the times, many times he said, look, it's not me they're coming after, it's you.
Right,
it's
right.
not me they're coming after, it's you. It's not me they're coming after, it's you. Well, if you have any leanings and you're seeing things like wannabe dictator speaks at the White House after having his political rival arrested, you probably believe they are coming for you.
Right.
And the issues, I mean, there really are. It is kind of fascinating if you could divorce yourself from and just be an observer, right? Which we can't be because we're all in America. We're all part of this. But certainly, with the Republican Party currently, with Trump as its spokesperson, with its base as its strength, with Fox broadcasting the news, every minority person in America should be concerned. Okay? Every minority person in America should be concerned. They've already attacked women with Roe v. Wade, right?
Right.
They certainly attacked indirectly African Americans.
Well, here, I'm going to interrupt you for a second, Dave.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
and you and I have discussed this in certain ways before. When we're talking about the poor in general, whether it's minorities or just people who are poor, there's usually a lack of education. So then they have lower salaries, which means they're working a lot to survive, and it's hard to catch up. And we've seen it with students who are detached from the world around them, aside from what they see on TikTok or what they listen to or what they eat at lunch. Everything is very immediate to them, every momentary. And this seems to be one of the great problems, because even though, as you say, these people, whether it's minorities or the poor in general, who are greatly affected by what happens in our elections, who are greatly affected by a Republican administration, still to get that group of people to come out is an incredibly difficult and monumental task. And in certain ways, it's usually where we lose, even though they're not to blame. It's just a result of the situation.
Well, I think you said a couple things there I'd like to address. First of all, you used the word education. The Republican base, and indeed their candidates, pretty much, to have an education is a badge of dishonor, not honor, right? So, basically the idea is these educated coastal elites are coming after you with their big education, but they can't even, they couldn't run a factory, or they couldn't.
Right. They can't do that. They're not the ones dealing with and that, by the way, that word elite is, it's not just the United States. This is the thing that has run through Russia, that somehow it's the elites of the world making, and they use that word so loosely. And even, I'm sure someone in our chat room have a certain feeling toward that, as if maybe the elite in the corporate world, but that can be very tenuous, that whole idea of elite, because to me the elite are the ones who are in control, and if anybody's in control, it's the Republican Party to some extent.
Which gets to a point that's very interesting. It's hard to get elected, right, if you're not part of the elite, because automatically you're running probably pushes you into that, even if you don't have the background or the education. I mean, I don't know. I should know this. I don't. Maybe somebody can help me. Let's take your two favorite women in Congress, Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene. I assume, and this is dangerous, I assume that they have some college education, if not a degree. Global Solidarity College is an economic business.
Not Lauren Boebert, though. I don't think she has.
I didn't say she had I said some college education. I don't know.
Right. Okay, I understand. I'm sorry.
Not having to give some. Certainly.
Not that would matter. You can be intelligent, but she's not intelligent either way.
But my point is, the Republican base again is worried about criticizing, attacking the elites when the people representing him. Donald Trump is an elite. Okay, he doesn't have the money that he claims he has, but he has more money than he probably has more money than everybody watching this show.
He has leverage because of his debt too.
Certainly, you and I do that. Now, I remember they got to the professor. I don't know if you remember this. They got to one of his professors at the Wharton School of Business. And he didn't pick any bones. I don't know if he was a Democrat, a liberal, or just a Trump hater. He said Donald Trump was the dumbest student he ever taught. Now, that may or may not be true. Certainly, when you look at his background, he is one of those elites where his father paved the way, right? But now that's their number one candidate, right? Donald Trump, an elite, but yet they're attacking elites. Then your next in line, or I shouldn't say in line, your next highest poller is Ron DeSantis, who was a graduate of law school.
Okay. Harvard Law School, right? I think.
Yeah, and so certainly, while it doesn't mean you're a genius if you graduate law school, it gets back, and we'll circle kind of back around to your question, and kind of put maybe a point to it. It is possible, just about anything is possible. That the Republicans are supporting Donald Trump for fear of something he might have on them, right? But I don't think that's the case. I think that, as I said, I think it's two primary reasons. They do not want to alienate his base, which it really is. It's Trump's base, okay, right now, and they do not want to cross paths with the network that will help them become president, Fox News. And you get somebody like Jesse Waters, who's now trying to be the next Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity. They don't want to alienate that their conduit into your home. And I think that's probably the worst thing about TV. It's the best thing too. It's been said that television actors, if they're in a long-running series, have a much harder time sometimes than movie actors in taking other roles. Because, a movie, you go in, you come out, that's it, right? Or you watch it on your TV, so maybe it's a little bit different. But, when somebody comes into your home, they're part of you. People, whether it's Nicole Wallace, Joy Reid, Sean Hannity, they become part. So that's the big thing. Who I don't know that Fox. I don't know if Fox can anoint a president. I don't know if they have that power, but they can certainly diminish someone's chances of becoming president.
Right. Well, Dave, I do want to show a few clips. Hopefully these will work today. Just short things. Nothing, earth-shattering. But I think, again, we must show what we're dealing with the Republican Party. So, all right. So let me go to the web here. And if you can't hear, Dave, you'll tell me. This will work out perfectly. Let me just put you in here. All right. We're going to put this on and see what happens. Again, you'll tell me if you can hear.
People never tell the goddamn truth, ever. Ever. You and your
Can you point to me where the supporters are? They're down there. And I spoke to them this morning. There's a handful of very vocal Trump supporters.
You'll all get locked up.
Alvin Bragg has filed 4 false charges against this beautiful man, and I'm outraged, and I'm going to stand here as long as it takes to support this beautiful man.
All right. Dave, were you able to hear that?
It was low, but yeah, I could hear it. I don't know if everybody else.
Let me do one more time because I think I'm going to just do one thing here. I probably put the system audio too low. Let me try one more time.
Sure.
People never tell the goddamn truth, ever. Ever. You and your
Can you point to me where the supporters are? They're down there. And I spoke to them this morning. There's a handful of very vocal Trump supporters.
You'll all get locked up.
Alvin Bragg has filed 4 false charges against this beautiful man, and I'm outraged, and I'm going to stand here as long as it takes to support this beautiful man.
All right. I suppose that was better.
Yeah. I want to go to the woman first.
Sure.
New York accent. I would love to.
Eva.
Yeah, Eva. I would love. She says, "You people never ever report the truth, tell the truth." Does she? Would she say that Fox does, or OAN, or Newsmax? Because if nobody tells the truth, why are you following them? Why? So there was that. Then the other that bothered me, the gentleman. Donald Trump is not a beautiful man. He's not a beautiful man on the outside. He's certainly not a beautiful man on the inside. But you ever notice that was one of his favorite words? It's a beautiful this. It's a beautiful that. It's a beautiful this.
And even he's talking about it with the, I guess the boxes. He's talking about the beautiful mind, like the movie.
And so, those two people are what we're talking about when we talk.
And one of them, not to say that all gays have to be Democratic, but you would think of all people to support, if you are gay, what in your mind are you thinking supporting Donald Trump? And there aren't. I've seen that happen. There are people who are Trump supporters. We know somebody, Dave, who is an entrepreneur. He supports Trump, and he's gay.
Well, I guess the best answer I could come up with, of course, you'd have to ask any gay person who supports Donald Trump why they do. I think they have other hatreds or other fears that rise above themselves, if you will. But to get back to this, how those people, those two are great examples, Brian, of the Donald Trump base, right? They're not all insurrectionists, although they believe that insurrection might be okay. So we've got a Donald Trump tweet up there, right?
Right. This is going to lead into what you're saying. You've said recently.
Getting ready to head down to Doral in Miami. We must be strong and defeat the communists, the Marxists, and the radical left lunatics. Left lunatics, at least that's an alliteration, that are systematically destroying our country. Make America great again. Okay. There's nothing true in that.
In anything.
Except probably he may have been getting ready to head on down to Doral in Miami. After that, it all falls apart on the truth meter.
But doesn't this sound like McCarthyism in the 50s? The communist, Marxists, the radical left.
What's interesting? Yeah, I was. The difference, I guess, between McCarthyism and right now is McCarthyism. Joe McCarthy called people in and interrogated them, right, with Roy Cohn. Now, we said it before, but some people might not know this. Roy Cohn was the attorney behind Joe McCarthy. Many people think he was the brains of the operation because at the time, Joe McCarthy had a terrible, horrible drinking problem that affected his ability, probably as a senator. And guess what? Roy Cohn was also a legal advisor to Donald Trump. So are there similarities to it? Sure, but the difference is this is a candidate espousing that, right? Where that was an investigation. Now, behind a lot of that, behind the communist thing, there was also a thing going on at that time in D.C. called the Lavender Scare. Do you know what that was?
No, absolutely not.
No, and most people don't. It's a part of history that we really need to know. Yes, we were looking for communists, okay? McCarthy and those people, but also homosexuals were part of their target. And sometimes they felt they were one and the same, much as, back then, the right, if you will, also had misconceptions about what goes together or what comes together. Yes, there were gay communists, okay? But not every gay person in America at that time was gay. But of course, we're talking about a time when gay men and women pretty much had to stay in the closet if they held any kind of high position. And so what the Lavender Scare is they began, and what their fear was, what the fear of the government was at that time was that communist spies could find out about their background. And let's say, for example, let's use Senator Graham, Lindsey Graham, a lot of allegations about his sexuality. If they were back at the Lavender Scare times, they would have said to him, get out, right? Or we're going to force you out. And there were thousands, not hundreds of thousands, not tens of thousands, but more than 1,000 government employees, non-elected government employees, who were dismissed from their job. And the fear was, so you had the homophobe fear running, but you had the communist fear running. And really, that resurfaces now. The question becomes, how far have we come, right? Well, I'll tell you how far we've come. Now, ex-presidents, and potential future presidents are directing those remarks. It's not some drunken senator from the Midwest. Trev, I think that's a compliment in there. I think. I like that.
And in some ways, I think he's right. I mean, because the directions it takes, you can't have like a goal line sometimes with this kind of show.
What we said, Trev, and what we're talking about is roughly an hour, give or take. And then we'll pick up another hour during the week.
Right.
And that's kind of where we are. It's an experiment. It's an experiment. Obviously, the people that are with us, they tune in at the beginning and stay at the end. They like what they hear, I guess. So for them, they're willing to do, the 2 hours is not something they have to, it's not time they have to feel that that was lost or given up. Stockholm Syndrome, yeah, that's kind of interesting, I suppose. It's the only reason I can think of for a gay person to support Trump. You know what I find interesting, though, Brian? If you go back and you look at his past record, he certainly has, with his attack of the 4 young men falsely accused of rape in New York City.
Right. New York
with
City.
his Obama birther, and with his father's blessing, because they didn't rent till, 1979. They didn't rent to black people. Somehow they were able to do that. He certainly is. I think he has a problem with African Americans. But if you look prior to his running, he really never said much about gay, and even now, right? Now, what does that mean? I don't know. But certainly, Ron DeSantis has taken actions aimed directly.
Yeah, he's got a hard on for that. He just can't stop.
Right. So if you were, if your cause was, I'm fearful of gays taking over America, and I'm afraid of the pronouns, his, DeSantis should be your man. But I think that's something else that people are able to do with most of the candidates. But Trump, yeah, but some of it could have been cut. I guess what I'm trying to say here, and I'm not saying it very well, so let me try it this way. It's almost as if you like Trump, right? Obviously, you don't see the faults that we see in him, right?
That's an interesting comment. That's an interesting comment there.
I think that's probably true. No, I'm not. Let me go further. I think it is true. I'll simply say that. Trump speaks coarsely. Again, one of the biggest comments I heard, he speaks his mind. He speaks his mind. And if he speaks his mind,
no filter.
One of two things are happening, or simultaneously both. If he speaks his mind, you must think that he is doing that. And secondly, it doesn't offend you or you agree with it. They're the only options, right? You're not going to support someone who you disagree with. It's unfortunate in America. We're not going to change this. A Democrat gets a label and a Republican gets a label. I think the difference is once upon a time, the label for Republicans was understandable because it was somewhat civil, right? Friends, I think that was something true now. And I want to do that. On the day he got indicted, right? A couple things happened. He goes to court. So, of course, you're going to cover that, right? I mean, that's big news. You can't blame any network for not covering that. You have to cover that. But I'd love to know whether it was his idea or his press people's idea, or who came up with that idea to visit the Cuban restaurant outside in Miami.
Right. He's going to pay for everybody.
Yeah. You think any money really changed hands? Just like I'll follow you down the street when we go to take on the Capitol. But all of a sudden, think about that. He is now with a I don't know 2-minute, 3-minute video clip, balanced in some ways the bad Trump getting indicted, which again his supporters believe it's a witch hunt. They do. I mean, so that's not even a bad thing. But then if anybody was wondering about that, oh no, he's going to go down there. And now, of course, you know why he chose that. Republicans are making tremendous inroads nationwide into the getting Latino Hispanic votes. People could say that same things we said. I don't know why a gay man or woman would support a Republican. I could say I don't know why a Latino or Hispanic person would support. I think a lot of theirs has to do with the church, the Catholic Church, and abortion. Again, an issue that overrides everything else. Now, the idea continues. So Trump now has commandeered the news twice that day, right? His appearance at court, then the Miami. But he also gets it when he returns to New Jersey, right? Flying the helicopter, coming down. I think he spoke for 2 minutes and 16 seconds or something when he got off back in New Jersey. But then here comes the kicker. Something to say the luck of Donald Trump. Well, maybe. That night he had the kickoff first official fundraiser for his campaign. And with one party, if you will, he raised $2 million. So on the day he got indicted, he raised $2 million at one event, and who knows how much more pours in, because people get outraged, they get upset, they want to help Donald Trump, and they send money to him. Now, you might as well just go outside and burn that money. It certainly, or a large percentage, even never gets there. Trump may have his best ally, though, and we mentioned it earlier. That would be Judge Eileen Cannon.
Right.
That is frightening, okay? And I think someone put it up, I think one of our people put it up very well, something like this, and I'm paraphrasing. You have someone who has absolutely no judicial experience to speak of. She doesn't even have 10 trials in her life under her belt. She was asked to submit writings, which judges are. Well, they want legal opinions. She submitted things she wrote when she was a reporting intern. Either she didn't have much, or that was kind of stupid for the articles. And she is going to preside over what will definitely be one of the biggest trials in American history.
Right.
Never been a president, never been there, which again, I think speaks to a difference in time. Nixon resigned so he wouldn't have to face what Trump is facing. Trump will never, didn't matter the impeachments. Trump was not going to resign. Trump is going to run. And I think, I'm going to go out on a limb tonight. I think Trump will be the Republican nominee. As of today. Now, things can change, right? DeSantis is trying to be Trumpian, but I think a lot, when it comes down to it, voters are going to say, do I want the Trumpian or do I want the real deal, Trump?
Right, and Cannon can certainly push the trial past 2024 to help. That's all he needs from her. That's all he needs. He doesn't even need much more than that. Let's just stall the trial until 2020, past the election. Then he can pardon himself no matter what.
Right, and that's the thing that I think bothers me more, maybe than anything else. Well, Cannon having the trial bothers me a lot, and you would think something could be done. And again, I'm somewhat ignorant, but I've heard on this point. But I've heard there are only, like, in that area where the trial will take place, there's very few federal judges. So I think they said 4. So that gave her a 25% chance of
right. It was a very slim chance of getting in there.
But she got it. Now, I don't think that was fixed. Maybe it was. I don't know.
A clerk did it, but who knows what the clerk? We don't know.
Well, you don't know. You've said all along. One of your concerns, which I can't dismiss, is with Republicans holding so many of the districts in terms of voting. County clerks and that.
Right. Yeah. You can. It can work its way down to the local level, and then there's somebody does not even have to wink. He could just have that look, and they're gonna Cannon. Because she's the one. I mean, she obviously wasn't. I think even the first time she embarrassed herself, she was not worried about being embarrassed. Even by the 11th appeals court, the district or whatever.
It is strange though. My wife, who loosely follows politics, she happened to watch the MSNBC show where it was devoted to Cannon and why she shouldn't be, real reasons why she shouldn't be.
Right.
And Judy just kind of sat there and says, how does this happen? And wow,
this is what happens when you have a fascist state. Things like this do happen.
Well, the problem becomes that Trump was able to appoint what?
Right. I mean, who knows how many judges? You just know that he did appoint, and he appointed 3 Supreme Court justices. So that's a big problem.
Now, of course, there have been a couple times when justices that he appointed had ruled against him or
True.
Issue. But I wouldn't bet on it. You know what I mean? I wouldn't bet on it. And I don't know. Yeah, Joey, that's true. Gerald Ford pardoned Nixon hurt him in the 1976 election. However, having lived through that time, I think Gerald Ford, in retrospect, did the right thing. I do. I think now the difference is, people said that tie into that. What, Joey? Great comment, because tie into that now. The idea of, we already hear Cannon say that they will pardon Trump. And you say, well, what's the difference? What's the difference? Well, I think while Nixon's crimes were great, there's no question about that. He undermined democracy. The sad thing is, if you're a Nixon fan, I'm not, but if you are or were, he really, Watergate was totally unnecessary. He had that thing locked up. Daniel Ellsberg break-in, which really paved the way, for the Watergate break-in.
Did he? Ellsberg died
yeah, just
yesterday?
recently. This week. I'm not sure what day. And of course, but the point is, it just gets to a different time. Nixon, like I said, he left to avoid the disgrace that was coming anyway, but not to make it any worse. I don't know if there's anything that would make Donald Trump feel shame, remorse, or a sense of disgrace. I can't think of anything.
Nor would I be able to think of anything.
I mean, unless you get something really bizarre that's unimaginable. Him having, they talked about shooting in Fifth Avenue, but him having sex with a corpse, maybe, I don't know. Yes, that's and what it is. They're not only planning on asking Cannon once to throw out the church, they'll come back again and again and again and again on every single move that the prosecution makes. They'll come up with a reason. Probably
and they'll come up with a reason, whatever it is, specifically. They'll come up with a reason that will give her the out to do her thing. See what I'm saying? They've got to they got to work together without actually speaking to one another. So I think what they'll do, again, this is the very conspiracy-like thinking mentality that I would have right now, is that they will set her up with a way that she can rule and get around.
Given her inexperience, I would think. Now I could be wrong on this. I would think she'll turn to somebody for advice, and that person who turns to advice is going to be a Republican, okay? And it's not going to be a balanced Republican, because they don't exist.
Would it be Turley, someone like that, or Dershowitz? Even Dershowitz might give her advice.
Could be anyone, and I'm sure she has. I mean, most lawyers and most judges have a brain trust, and I'm sure she's no different. By that I mean some people that advise her or consult with her. Now, what we don't know is what does she think? Maybe the P tape. Marty, I still want to see that. I'm going to tell a story now, if I may. All right, related to the P tape, because that's one of my favorite things about Trump. So at the time, I was working at the museum as a guide with this tour, and so one day. They called me and said, I said I'd work any day, but I didn't want to work Saturdays because it was open. I said, I even work Sundays. I just don't want to work Saturdays. But they called me in, and we would go up to the main desk to get our assignments. So I knew how to tour. And they said, this is a private tour. And at the time, it cost $20 for a private tour. All right, $20 per person in your group. And we would take up to 10. So I go in, I check into the desk. And I said, so what's going on? And they said, we have a private tour. I said, yeah, 10 people, right? They said, no. I said, what do you mean, no? They said, I was a private tour filled. They said, it's 2 people. I said, wait a minute. You're telling me that 2 people paid $200 to get a private tour they could have had for 20? And they said, yeah. Well, I walk up and find out who it is. And it was the new Russian ambassador who had just arrived in this country, and his attaché. Now, I was a little surprised that he didn't have an entourage with him, but he wanted to come see American journalism as depicted in the museum. All I wanted to ask him is, A, is there a P tape? B, what's on it? And C, can I watch it? They're the only questions I had. And of course, I didn't, because I really felt bad about not asking those questions. Later, but I thought, we'll be proper this time. So every time I think of the P tape, and if there is a P tape, it wasn't the way people thought it was, apparently. First of all, you would think of someone, the golden showers they talk about, peeing on someone, or you peeing on someone. According to some reports, it was, and this is probably true, it was 2 Soviet or Russian prostitutes peeing on the bed with Trump just watching, because that was the bed that Barack Obama and Michelle had slept on. Is that keeping with what Trump might do? I don't know. Is it? I mean, or is that fallacious? You would think, though, probably the P tape may be imaginary. Because don't you think, Brian, if there did exist a P tape by now, it'd be out there somewhere?
I don't know. I think that it wouldn't even matter. I think that Putin would have enough on Trump if he really wanted to nail him. that's the one thing, because they're treacherous with that kind of stuff, and I'm sure he made it. See, it's one thing here in the United States where you have to go through these legal issues, but in Russia, that's a fascist. Well, it's an autocratic country, and they can get it like that. So it's Dave. I wanted to show you one thing, if you don't mind. This is only going to take a minute. This is going to be Steve Smith again. I tend to show his stuff a lot, and I kind of like it. But yeah, we'll check this one out just for about a minute or two. It's a longer video, but I'm only going to show it. Let's just about Trump.
No volume, Brian.
No volume?
No.
All right. That's strange because I have the volume all the way up. Let me go back here. All right. I think I got knocked off. Okay. We'll try this now. You'll tell me, Dave. Here, go back here.
Perfect nation.
Good?
Could be a little bit louder.
Okay.
Freedom of speech, of conscience, matter. What Donald Trump is saying with his threats, that because he has been held accountable, he seeks to break the institutions. Imagine the conservative party, the Republican Party in the United States, a party whose entire existence is premised on the preservation, the conservation of the tenets of the American Revolution, has become the main vessel for the rise of a wannabe American dictator.
Enough there. All right.
Well, I think the main thing is that from that, and from something I'm going to talk about, it'll be my last comments for the night, perhaps. But the Constitution is, our document, right? It's the American document. We have that. But of course, it's always been open to interpretation. And I think one of the things that the Republican Party has co-opted from that, and certainly for decades now, which is proving deadly to America, is the Second Amendment. Some people, again, I'm sure all our viewers do, but maybe somebody's not sure. Some people thought, and I learned this when I did my tours at the museum, quite a few people, I shouldn't say a lot, quite a few people thought the amendments were something different than the Constitution. But amendment means change, adding something, putting something in, changing something that was in the Constitution. So a lot of people have this idea that the Second Amendment is so prevalent. This week, just a couple things happened. One in a book I'm reading, and the other was late last week. One of the key figures in all this is, where did this come from? I think one of the key figures in this change in the Republican Party was a reverend, I'm sure you know his name, who died recently, Brian?
Pat Robertson.
What was his name? Pat Robertson. And Pat Robertson really should probably take the credit or the blame, depending on which side of the equation you're on, of merging the religious right and political power. He did so many interesting things over a period of time. So many crazy things. But because he was a minister, people thought he spoke with God, and God spoke through him. No way. But he and Jerry Falwell, I think, when history looks back, will be two of the people that set this religious right up. You have these people really only worrying about the Second Amendment in the Constitution. And that brings me to a book that I'm really enjoying by an author I really like, Jeffrey Toobin. Yes, Mr. Toobin had some problems in terms of a Zoom conference where he exposed himself. But that doesn't have anything to do with his ability to write and his ability to research. And it's a new book. It's Homegrown, Timothy McVeigh and the Rise of Right-Wing Extremism. And that was a moment, the Oklahoma City bombing, when, I think it shifted simply a number That was the largest attack right up until 9/11, and it was it was an American terrorist who did it. And what's scary, Brian, and it's what some of what Tubin is talking about, the profile and what of McVeigh, the picture or the portrait that he paints, could apply to just about every one of the insurrectionists who took over the Capitol.
Right, right.
So now you had Timothy McVeigh and his two kind of dim-witted accomplices, right, or associates. Now you have hundreds of, certainly Timothy McVeighs, if you will. And this brings us to another one of our topics that we talk about a lot, is why more now? Well, it's very simple. It's the internet. Timothy McVeigh said time and time again, I knew I couldn't be the only one, but I couldn't reach those like me. There was no internet, so you didn't know. He would go to gun shows. That was one of the things. He would go to gun shows to actually make money, and he worshiped guns, like so many of the people who took over the Capitol. But they couldn't form that group, right? He actually touched base with the Michigan militia, who again just recently, decided to try to kidnap the Governor Whitmer of Michigan. But the things that he believed in, the things that concerned him, I wonder when I look at the Timothy McVeighs of the world, or I look at the Proud Boys, the people that took over, how did they get there? And I think, Tubin, using McVeigh's own words, McVeigh was very forthcoming about how he got there. And it was basically the Second Amendment. He thought America was taking us over. He thought America was being taken over, somewhat about the idea of a one world state. The only difference maybe between him and now, there was really, with McVeigh, there was nothing about religion. Nothing about religion. And that brings me to the final comment I want to make tonight. Or at least I think it's the final one. But anyway, I want to get everybody up to speed on Elon Musk. In this sense, Elon Musk owns Twitter now, right? It's his play toy. And he has some disturbing beliefs. And we're already seeing them in practice. They're restoring some of the people they took off Twitter ban. He's reduced the people that actually look on to see incendiary or derogatory comments. And Twitter, again, back to Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump made Twitter the idea of being the conversation center, if you will, of the radical Republican right. Of course, once Trump was taken off, and social truth and his nothing beats that base of Twitter. So we look at what's going on in America. We've got no real reason to be optimistic. Yeah, certainly Anthony. And I think, again, has money changed him? I think, obviously it changes him somewhat. But I think he was a schmuck then, and now he's just a rich schmuck. But the problem is he's a rich schmuck with a very powerful communications tool that he can use. Brian, I started to say, not to be so optimistic. I don't think we can be. I think we can be hopeful. I think there's a difference. We can look back. Well, this is because we're going into guns tonight, Gary. That's why. See, and the women don't want that. It is. That's interesting. Although the producers are actually not freaking because we're talking. We may be freaking, but
right.
we have to talk. We don't have producers.
And quite frankly, we don't even really look at the numbers that much. In fact, I'll look 3 or 4 days later. It's never really that good. So as Dave has mentioned, we're going to be experimenting with, doing shows during the week uploaded, but we definitely get around 10 times the viewership, at least, if not 20 times the viewership by doing it, by an upload. But we have no idea why that's happening like that.
So I'd like to make one last plea here. If anybody has a comment or a question, we will extend for that. We'll never. I think we can give this promise, Brian. If there's ever a question up there, or a comment that we feel we need to, comment on,
Yeah,
we will
Elon
have
Musk.
to show that one.
I've seen Elon Musk comment, to Bill Maher. He believes the Earth is underpopulated, but I think it's bullshit.
Well, I
It's kind
think
of
this is
like
what
George Will used to say. Well, we've always dealt with the population as it's increased, but no, Malthus had it right, and that's just part of the. I mean, as long as you have 2 or 3 billion people starving or undernourished, it is overpopulated. And it's overpopulated in the wrong places too.
Well, and I think part of that is if it had been overpopulated in Roman times, which it wasn't, but say, but now it's overpopulated in times when there's too many damn cars too. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's not just the population, although that's huge. It's also the power that they're using to heat their homes, to
Right.
drive their cars.
And where it's overpopulated, it's just, and you cannot simply judge someone like Musk, based on, well, you're feeding 8 billion people, but how about the tremendous strain it is on the animal population and on the environment that he seems not to worry about? Or maybe he has the George Will attitude that somehow business will take care of business, no pun intended, and figure it all out, and we do better.
And the question with that is it past the time to figure it out? I mean, are we down a road that we can't turn off of? And no one knows that.
Nobody knows
It's
it,
nice,
but
it's nice to think about that.
it doesn't look good.
I would agree. Any final comments from you, Brian, tonight?
No, I think that's where I wanted to go with it tonight, Dave. A shorter show. I think we need that sometimes. Although I have to say that sometimes our show tends to pick up, at the 2-hour mark. But it's all right. It's we've covered what we need to cover, and we'll do something, Dave. Maybe next.
When is your last day of school, Brian?
Wednesday.
Well, why don't we wait until you need to close?
Oh, wait till I get it right, because I don't know what's going to happen on Tuesday and that kind of thing.
We'll see.
Because I really do want to do a recorded broadcast anyway, polished up a little bit, and I just want to see how the numbers work.
And maybe we'll find out. This is all an experiment. Maybe we'll find out that this is also summer, and I think people have more things to do in the summer. In terms of Saturday night than they do in the winter. And of course, we started this thing really during the pandemic, which gave us kind of a false, false report on the impact. But again, thank you if you tuned in tonight. Thank you if you watching now on YouTube. Just thank you.
And don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Subscribe, please.
Okay.
And join our Facebook group. We're still on a team here. You know what I mean? We don't have exactly the same opinions on everything, but that's okay. We're all roads lead to Rome in this case. So anyway, well, thank you, Dave. Dave, I am going to sign off completely as usual, and I'll get a hold of you during the week. All right. I appreciate you coming on. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Please like and share if you feel the need to. Thank you.